from Cyrene, grabbed a hold of Simon and says, "You carry his cross." So here Simon is carrying the cross for Jesus. Jesus has been whipped. I mean whipped and bloodied. And Simon carries his cross, and they make their way through the streets of Jerusalem, outside, up to a little hill that was called a Skull. Probably because it looked like a skull. Golgotha, or Calvary. It all means the same thing, a skull. And there, they crucified him. Probably the soldier grabbed hold of him and threw him down on the ground. He's a common criminal. Threw him down on the ground. One soldier grabs one arm, puts it up against the cross beam, and starts driving him into it. Another soldier grabs another arm and does the same thing. Somebody grabs his feet, does the same thing. They nail him to the cross beam, fix it to the vertical post, and then raise the whole thing up into the hole, pre-dug hole. And they crucify him. Crucifixion is made to prolong death. It's not something you die of in a few minutes. They make sure they don't hit any major arteries. They're experts at this. They don't want you bleeding to death in a few hours. Sometimes prisoners would live, 2 days. It's very possible for a person. You're not talking about major arteries and major blood loss. You're hanging with your hands nailed and your feet nailed, and you're holding against the pain, of the nails in your hands and your feet. You're holding out the pain as long as you can. You're breathing as long as you can. But after a while, the agony is so hard, and face it, you can't. Your muscles get tired, and after a while, you kind of slump down. And in doing so, the body weight makes it not impossible for your diaphragm muscle to pull down and suck air into the lungs. And so while you're hanging there like that, you can't take breath. It's this little shallow thing trying to get some oxygen in your blood, and you can't do it. And so after a while, when you can't stand anymore, you push against the nails and pull against the nails and fill your lungs with air and breathe and hold out until the pain is too much to bear, and so you slump down again. And it's, this cycle of pushing yourself up and falling back down, pushing yourself up and falling back down. And you do that sometimes for days until you're just so exhausted you can't hold yourself up anymore. And eventually you die of asphyxiation. It was designed to be as cruel as possible. Now, Jesus said, "No man takes my life from me. I lay it down." Just after a few hours on the cross, I'm not going to go through, I wish I could just take time to preach on everything Jesus said, from "Father, forgive them, they know not what they do," all the way to, the very end when he said, "Father, in thy hands I commend my spirit." It's a whole world of things that take place in just a few hours on the cross, where eternity past looked forward, and where eternity future will look back. The center point of time and eternity is there on the cross. And after a few hours, he gave up the ghost and died. Now, I don't pretend to know all the reasons for his death on the cross. Why would God the Father make his Son go through that? We're told in the Bible that part of the reason is because there is a consequence to sin. I mean, if you go out and rob a bank, there are going to be consequences to that. Even if you don't get caught, you are a bank robber. Whether anybody else knows or not, you know it, you are a bank. There are consequences to every sin. Some are, maybe more great than others, but there are consequences to sin. God says, as far as he is concerned, between God himself and his creation, if you commit sin, you die. By that now, we don't mean just a physical death. That's bad enough. But it gets worse. There is another death, a fuller death. that is only pictured in our physical death. We see the physical death and we don't like it. It's bad. You know, there's separation, there's loneliness, there's stench, there's coldness, all the bad things that we think, go along with the physical death. It's worse in the spiritual arena. When you die from sin, you are totally cut off from the life that is God. You're dead. You're dead. And you're just a walking dead person. One day you're going to go through the physical death because you are dead spiritually. You don't have life. If you're not connected to God, you are not alive. You're a walking dead person. And all that goes along with it, the stench of your sin, the coldness, all that goes with death, that's you spiritually. And God said, because of sin, the consequence is death. And no way to get around it. In His universe, in His realm, the universe, God says the law is, you commit sin against me, you violate me and my holiness, you bring your sin into my face and rub it in my face, and you will pay. You die. You say, well, I won't do it in your face. I'll go and hide in my basement. God is everywhere. This is all of God's universe. You can't get out of His presence and go hide and do your sin. You're doing it in His face. And you're dead. But God saw fit to allow His Son to take upon Himself all of your sin and all of my sin and all of the sins of all humanity. The Bible says, He hath made Him to be sin for us. He who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in Him, in Jesus. Somehow God has worked it out so that if you will allow the sacrifice of Jesus, if you allow God, He will account the sacrifice of Jesus, put it kind of in your account. Everything that Jesus has done, everything, He has totally paid for the sin if you just accept what He's done. Most people can't do that. Most people, they still want to hold on to their own good. But I can do this. I can be good. And I can stop doing this. I can stop doing that. I can make myself start doing good things and I'll be okay. And the problem is you can't do that. You can't become sinless. But even if you could, what about all those sins you have committed? You still have a sin debt that has to be paid. As far as God is concerned, the wages of sin is death. It is a law, and He will enforce that law. Thankfully, God has provided the payment of sin in His Son, Jesus Christ. But it requires you trusting in that. We don't really, I don't think we appreciate what it means to trust, to believe in Jesus. We say, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Oh, wait, this is John 3:16. We all know that. Whosoever believeth in Him. But the word believe, the original language word, could mean believing on one level, or it could mean believing on another level, a higher, deeper, more active type of a level. I could say to you, do you believe that train track over there? You see the train coming up? Do you believe that train, could just smash the smithereens? If a person were to, stand in front of the train, who's going to win? And you all say, that's no no-brainer. The train will win. I believe the train will smash that person to pieces. Yeah, and we call that belief. But if you were standing on the track, looking at the train coming, and I said to you, do you believe that train will kill you? And you said, yeah. And you just stood there. And you brace yourself. I